Happy New Year, guys, and what a year that was. Guys, let me know some of your 2020 highlights and what sort of plans you have for 2021. Starting up YouTube and Twitch again this year was huge for me, and I'm really looking forward to busting out multiple videos for you guys every week consistently, and hanging out with some of you over at twitch.tv/BenKyo361. I haven't posted a new video in a few weeks, apologies guys. I've been doing some work behind the scenes to improve the quality of my vids and streams and set myself up for consistency. I've actually stopped the Tygem Go Conquest series for now because there are just too many issues with that server, and on top of that, it's getting harder to find games there these days. But that's totally fine, we'll just conquer Foxy Go server instead. So here we are, Foxy Conquest. 4Q to 9 Dan, here we go. Alright, our first 4Q game on Fox. So I'm gonna try to keep this nice and simple. Unless white doesn't let me. But yeah, hopefully this can be an example of how to win with the simplest moves possible. With some exceptions, of course. Alright, so we just take the corner. Simple, classic territory opening for black. Pretty good. White usually connects around here or tiger's mouth. Okay. So this can turn into the same thing, but instead of cutting, it could be better to invade or hane under. I can also tanuki this. Well, normally I would probably invade right here because I don't see a good response for white actually. But let's, in the spirit of keeping things simple, let's just let it be for now and approach the corner over here. So yeah, if white connects around here, then we can just extend and finish the variation. If white never fixes this, then I am gonna have to take advantage of this. But again, in the spirit of keeping things simple, let's just leave it alone as long as we can. So white has extended along the bottom, and now we should probably settle our group. So let's just keep it simple and go 2 spaces. Black is a little bit over concentrated this way, but white does have a weakness and probably needs to fix it. So white did not fix it. So I think it's time to start taking advantage of white's weaknesses now. You can see that black has not really made any weaknesses, but white has 2 now. So the question is, do we just approach and make white awkward, having to fix with something like this, or can we attach here and cut? So attach, white cuts, we cross cut, white fixes the corner, and we would then need to choose one of these 2 moves, probably crawl here. If we crawl, white plays hane and we hane back. White cannot double hane because we have this Atari and then capturing these 2 stones. So white would have to keep crawling as well. This won't be good for us unless something bad happens to the corner, and it looks like the corner is going to be okay. So let's just make white feel a little awkward over here. Normally, because there's a knight move here and black stood up with this iron pillar, it's important to add a move around here usually. Okay, so white is not responding very peacefully, so we're going to take advantage of this now. We have no choice. You could just run out here, but then sometimes you just have to punish. So we can exchange this one. If white sacrifices the cornerstone, then it's already going to be good for us. And right now, our invasion stone over here is, well, our approach move over here is relatively light still in case white were able to capture it in exchange for the corner. But white's not giving up the corner. What white should have done here is connect solid, because now we're going to have this Atari waiting here. So white's going to lose points here, but right now let's just fix this part. And you can see that this is going to be bad for white, because white's all cut off now and this stone here is in a strange place. So we could block like this, but this does give white the Atari, which ends up being a sente cut. now or later, or the peep. We could also just extend and still white cannot connect. So the important thing here though is that we fix the shape and we also don't let white connect under, because if white connects under, this fight is over. White's one weak stone here would be not weak anymore. So let's just do a solid connection. Now white is going to be forced to help this stone soon, or now or soon. So white extends, but this is still a really good result for black because black cut off this whole part. We have the chance to Atari here because it actually does threaten the entire corner. So this is quite painful for white in terms of points. Alright, what's white gonna do? Connect? Connect is alive, but still quite painful. And it looks like the 3-3 invasion up here is going to be really nice soon because black already has extension along the left side and also a position in the upper right. So white doesn't have very much potential on either side, which means whichever way white builds a wall when black invades, it's not going to be that useful. Probably white would like to build on the top. Because black has all this thickness down here, this big wall basically, it might be good for black to just approach and then build up this part. This is one of those situations where even though there's more space on the top's actually less interesting for black because black has a really big wall over here. If white wants to just live, white can just connect. Okay, so white connected. Yep. Now we're going to play elsewhere, and the most important place would be the upper left corner. So what should we do? The moves I would consider here would be to invade the 3-3 or to approach because of the big wall we have on the bottom. And so in this case, let's go for the approach. In the future, we may even be able to make a wall on top of the group down here with, for example, a combination like peeping or pressing here, and if white blocks, then you can play on the start point. It's one of the middle game Joseki to make a wall on top of an opponent's group. So this pincer is pretty unreasonable in this case because there's not very much space over here, and white also needs to manage the corner. So black jumps out. Even if white jumps out as well, black would just cover white with this move. So white blocked the corner, and actually white's also threatening to connect under using this attach move. If black breaks the connection, then white will cut, black takes a 1 stone, and white will Atari and cut through. And that's how white connects. And in this case, that would be bad for black because black would lose the 1 stone over here and white would become safe. So black needs to play something that would break the connection, but in a really useful way, not too slow. White got the whole corner already by blocking here. And if black just plays like connecting here or descending here or maybe diagonal like this, then white would be getting too good of a trade with that because black would be looking really inefficient and white already got the whole corner. At that point, white could even think of ways to sacrifice the 1 stone. So we need a better way. My thinking is to play this this other jump here to cap white with this turning jump. So if we cover white from this side and then white tries to connect under again, if we block on this side and don't let white connect, white will cross cut. We take, white Ataris, we connect, white pushes through, and then we cut. So I'm playing this one. White can Atari here, but white would still need to add something over here. And then we would still have time to make another eye over here. And white's also cut, so white would be really weak. White is maybe threatening now to connect under, so we need to keep watching that. And don't let white connect. So according to what I can see, white still can't successfully connect with this move over here. But in the spirit of simplicity, let's reinforce and stop white's connection so that we can stop thinking about it while also making some shape for black. We don't need to capture white, we just need to attack and benefit. So the question is, do we play this bumping move or this one to start building shape while we break the connection? So if we bump on this side, then when white pushes up, black would need to fix shape again, and white would get to make a tiger's mouth and break into the center with good shape. So I propose that we choose this one. It's going to be enough for black to keep the advantage and keep attacking. And most importantly, stop white from connecting under. With this move, white doesn't have a whole lot of shape yet, so black is still happy. And even if white plays the kicking move here, black can happily just extend up and still white won't have two eyes, and it's a good exchange for black, as black would be building this and still attacking white. So once again, we need to think about this connection, and we do want to have good shape as well for black. And if white were to even just bump here, black wouldn't really have a shape either. So we'll play here because this keeps up the attack on white, makes an eye for black, and makes sure white cannot connect under. And in the future, depending on the situation, we may be able to get an eye on the edge if we ever needed it. So now that white attaches here, in this case, I'll choose the typical Hane move, which is what you want to play most of the time. Anyway, usually the Hane here is what we play against the attachment. If white plays the tiger's mouth now, we will Atari and then fix. And yeah, probably by connecting solidly so that we don't have so many cutting points. And if white extends up, then where do you think black would play? Okay, this is a little unusual because white is leaving this Atari here. So let's go ahead and take this Atari because this ruins white's shape. This is not a well-executed example of playing lightly with white. White still should have just extended, and then black should extend in here to take the vital point away. It gets points for black, takes away white's eye shape and white's points as well, and also threatens to cut. So after white extended here and black played this extend, white would need to play some kind of jumping move in the center to get away while also fixing against this cut. But now this is going to be worse for white. White doesn't have too many good responses here. So white gives up one stone. And now the white stone here looks a little bit out of place. It would be a really good idea to play elsewhere now, and you totally can. One of the good moves right now would be to cover the corner like this, which strengthens black, but also limits white's potential and has future threats against the corner. It's a really, really big move. And it's one of the reasons why it's not a good idea to play a pincer in a situation like that, because you're going to need too many moves on both sides once black jumps out. Okay, so now the question is, how do we attack this group further? Because it's definitely not alive yet. Black is quite strong down here. So we don't want black to become weak up here though. So one idea is to just play some kind of jumping out move over here. This would make black safer and also put pressure on the white group. As we chase white down south, we can get some forcing moves along here as a leaning attack. And we might be able to create some collateral damage as white looks for safety down there. But first, it might be good to check out this move because this move blocks off white's corner, limits white's potential, and has future forcing moves against the corner. But of course, since this is a knight's move, you should definitely check out what happens if white tries to cut you. So what happens if white cuts? If white cuts with this push and then the cross cut, black can just run out with this group and have two groups. And white would have some trouble later with the corner. Also, when black runs out with this group, the white group down here will also become endangered. So in this case, it's okay to let yourself get split. And if white cuts with this attachment, followed by black cutting and white cross cutting, then you can check the ladder. In this case, the ladder does not work for black. There are some Atari and net sequences you can play, but in this case, let's just keep it simple. Let's jump here. This move threatens white on the bottom, and afterwards we can cover the corner. If white reinforces the corner right now, which white did, now we can get a really severe attack on this white group. So let's think about how we can attack this and make sure we plan it carefully. We are going to be chasing white down this way. And white has some stones down here. We don't want to let white connect. In this case, because white neglected this group too much and black is so strong around, we can definitely get a really strong attack on white, and we definitely want to make good on this jump that we played with black over here. So we want to attack white in a really profitable way. One idea here is to start preparing for our attack. So we're going to start the attack with something around here. A Kosumi like this might be nice and connected. There are other moves that can work as well if you're a little more daring, such as this knight's move here. But you probably wouldn't want to make looser shapes than that because it makes it easy for white to cut through you and find a way out if you play really loose shapes. And we don't need to kill white necessarily. We already have the advantage. Let's start with this move and see how white responds. If white gives this up, then we've already gotten all the profit we need. Thanks to our solid eye shape over here that we made earlier, as well as our prospects for an eye on the edge, as well as in the center, we don't really need to worry about this black group too much right now. So even if white ignores and jumps out into the center, we still don't really need to worry about our black group just yet. If we can cut through here, destroying the territory and also creating new weak groups, that would be all the profit we need. So white responded. Now the natural continuation from here, or one of them anyway, would be to attach on the star point now. But this would give white the chance to ignore and jump out into the center. We want to attach here on the star point for our leaning attack and to unite with the one stone over here, creating a wall. But we don't want to give white a chance to tanuki and play out here. So actually this would be a good moment for us to start the attack. We can follow up down here later because white's not going to have time to come here before us. To make sure we can keep white under control and make sure that white can't jump as far as this, instead of the Kosumi here, the diagonal, let's play the knight's move. As I said, our group here is pretty healthy. It has a minimum of one eye already and plenty of space to run around. So even if white cuts through here, it's not going to be a big issue as long as we just run away with the group after. So in this case, the extra power we get and control over white from playing the knight's move instead of the more solid Kosumi is going to be really good here. It's actually pretty difficult to see how white can get out of this painlessly. So if white jumps out here, then we can just push down and white's heading right towards our wall. So in this case, white played this knight's move. Now in the future, if white were to attach here, white might be making an eye with that move. So we should keep aware of that. So in this case, we should keep responding directly because again, if we switch to here now, then white's just going to jump out and be home free. So in this case, we will attach. The reason I want to attach is because we want to keep white lined up with our wall down here as closely as possible to increase the chance of keeping white cut from the bottom. If we just play another knight's move, this gives white the chance to break through with this diagonal or something similar and start connecting up and avoiding the wall down here. So that's why I played the tighter move here of attaching instead of the knight's move. At least this way, if white hane and make us extend, then white would at least need to spend another move. And this would give us actually a chance to attach onto the star point here now and make the attack go for a much longer time. In this shape, if white plays the hane, black actually, instead of extending, can play a counter move with this tiger's mouth, forcing white to extend back like this. Now, luckily for white though, there is potentially a ladder using this stone if black tries to cut after. But on the other hand, black always has sente here after to make white connect there. So actually the ladder would be a broken one. Even if white hane and black just extend, this is still going to be really nice for black because after white connects, it becomes really natural for black to play this star point to wall off on the bottom and create a leaning attack, which breaks white's connection.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Two, 1.
So we're keeping our shape strong and making white's shape worse. This wedge creates multiple cutting points and stops white from playing a tiger's mouth. This move is a mistake, and you can probably see why.
9, 8.
So this is kind of a fake Tsuji for white, a fake Suji, because even if white plays the double Atari here, it doesn't really amount to too much. And black can actually just Atari here, and now the whole dragon is cut off.
7, 6, 5.
And by dragon, I mean the large group under attack. Just take. Don't give white any more free Ataris or anything to make eyes. It's kind of impossible for white to make two eyes now because white would need to make an eye out here somehow in sente and then come back and make the gote eye over here. Let's just, okay. All right, guys, review time. So we had a pretty simple opening. This is pretty classic and played quite a bit nowadays, especially with large knights moving closure instead of this one. But this one is simpler, so that's kind of the theme of today's game. So black attaches under to take the corner, and this is normal. Normally white will do a solid connection or the tiger's mouth, threatening to seal black in with something like this attachment to make a wall outside. So black usually then extends here to stay on the outside while also getting some more territory. And then white will extend around here for some territory. But white chose to extend directly. I wouldn't recommend playing like this here with white because actually, although there is this cut here, there's even worse problems for white. For example, white's actually not connected. So, for example, if black just invades, white doesn't really have a good response here. If white connects, of course, if black just finishes the variation normally, then white can just capture this stone like this. But in this case, black already has the invasion move, so black can just move out. Even if white squeezes on this side with something like this, black can just, for example, pincer here now, get some territory, and then run out together with white with an advantage in the fight. So this isn't very good for white. White's not really getting much of anything here. Even this Hane under makes white's move look pretty bad because white doesn't get any territory now, and black has quite a bit, but as long as white doesn't defend the stones right now, this will be a little slow for black, and white can just extend over here. Invading directly would be a little more powerful, because, for example, let's say that later you capture these stones, then you wouldn't need to put a stone on the second line here. This move is a lot more stressful for white, whereas if you just Hane under, it also lets white just settle by extending, and it would be even slower for black if black were to continue playing. So black definitely should not. Since this black Hane on the second line is a little slow, black definitely shouldn't follow up anymore here. And then later on, white may get the chance to extend here, and so it might not be so bad at some point. So white might actually get quite a bit out of this later on. On the other hand, it would be too slow for black to continue playing here. White would just tanuki again. Since white hasn't connected yet, black also doesn't need to add any moves to the corner. So black just plays elsewhere. So this diagonal move, which in this case we would call a kick, is a really good move for getting the whole corner and also over concentrating this black shape, because normally when you have a 2-stone high wall like this, usually you want the extension to be at least one more space. So you want at least 3 spaces between the wall and the extension. But in this case, it's not all bad for black because black got stronger and also white has a big weakness now. And this weakness is especially apparent after black has the extension here at 1. So white should probably add a move, and then black can play elsewhere. For example, invading here, or approaching the corner like this, or invading the 3-3 point. So in the real game, white chose to just extend here, but this wasn't really too urgent since white could make a base over here or over here. So this gave black the chance to bother white's shape on this side. Locally, white pretty much needs to play a move like this because the cutting problem over here, the cross-cut attachment, is a really big issue for white actually. At least if white just plays here, white's shape is very solid, and although white is a bit over concentrated here, black technically owes a move on this side somewhere in order to profit from that move. And then white could just play elsewhere, for example, putting pressure on this group over here while making some territory, or maybe just closing the corner, for example, playing here or potentially here. The counter pincer here is a little bit unreasonable in this case because after black starts cutting, there's no good variation for white. If white were to capture this stone like this, then black can just double Atari in the corner, and then white takes, black extends down. And even if white captures the 1 stone here, this is a very good result for black because white only got maybe around 10 points of territory, but black got a lot more and took away white's corner actually. So this is quite a success for black. And then black can just play anything like 3-3 invasion, for example. Black has a really big lead actually at this point. Black has 4 corners now, and white has just around 10 points here, another 5 to 10 on the right side, and then komi. So It's definitely not enough to compete with black right now, and white doesn't really have prospects to make a big moyo in the center or even on a side. White can do something like connecting here and maybe cover this area. Even if white builds a moyo with something like this, it would be really easy for black to reduce the center here because it's open from all sides. In the real game, white fixed both cuts at once with this tiger's mouth, but this is actually an example of one of the wrong times to use a tiger's mouth. And this is because if white just connects solidly instead, then as we saw in the game, when black extends and white pushes again, white doesn't have any problems in the corner now. This is a really good result for black, but at least the corner is solid. In the real game, something similar happened. However, black also got the chance to Atari here, and this was a really big points loss for white and a slight points gain for black. The difference in the corner here of getting this Atari is worth well over Komi. At this moment, black has many good options. Even cutting here could be a really good move at this point since it gets black into the center and destroys any potential white could have had in this area to make a moyo. But since black does have this big wall in the south here, it also made some sense to approach this corner and develop the left side. This is definitely one of those situations where you don't want a pincer. Black has too many stones, really strong ones at that, in the nearby area. Black has too much strength down here and white doesn't have any space. When black jumps out like this, white has too much to deal with between helping the corner as well as this weak stone over here. When white blocks the corner like this, it's important to note that white also is threatening to connect under with this attachment. For example, attaching here. If black cuts, then white also cuts, and when black captures the one stone, white cuts through like this. So white uses the stone at 2 as a sacrifice in order to connect on the top instead of the bottom. And this is a common sequence. So this move was to attack white and block white's escape to the center, as well as to indirectly help against the connection under to the corner. So as white tries to escape, some good options here for black could be to play this capping move in the center to block white's escape, or to play a slightly more solid shape for a similar purpose, or perhaps to block off the corner for now like this, and just wait and see what happens with this weak group. In the real game, I chose to keep it simple as a demonstration by threatening white like this and preventing white from connecting under in the future. White chose to focus on connection with this move, so black got a chance to make good shape with this. After this, white has to run out into the center, and then black has a few options. For example, black could maybe peep here once, and then just jump out like this, and this would be a pretty solid attack. If white jumps out again, black can still attack in the future with moves like this. And black can also just play here now, which is a really nice spot to get. It helps black a lot, and it also limits white's corner. And there's a lot of future sente against white's corner too. It's going to be quite profitable. Even if white attaches under like this. Black's also quite happy about something like this happening, as white only adds a few points to the corner, whereas black gets a lot stronger, and a few points here, and a lot of potential on the top as well. So because of that, you usually don't want to let black get this move at 8 actually. So if you just remember that shape in general, you don't usually want to get covered there around 8. So that's another way that you know white messed up here. So back when black jumps here, ideally white would like to respond on this side, or sometimes just play the knight's move, because it's really painful to get blocked off from the center as you just saw. But still, this would be pretty good for black in this case because black gets the first move on this side again. So this pincer for white is quite unreasonable actually. So going back to the real game, white played this attachment, which was not a bad idea, but after black plays Hane here, white should extend. This is the normal move. black would break the shape like this. This would give black points, remove white's points and white's eye space, and also threaten to push and cut. White would then play something to fix the cut while running out, and black would probably run out with white, either with this jump or maybe just covering like this. This could lead to a fight since black's shape does have a cutting point. Maybe white can harass black with a move like this. And then if black fixes, then maybe white plays another move in the center. After black 7, maybe white can play around here, threatening to cut here and keep the pressure up on black while improving white's position. If black were to just connect, then white can just start covering the whole center like this. Black would probably connect indirectly with maybe a peep. So then maybe it's better for black to focus on keeping the pressure on white first. So with a move like this. And if white keeps moving into the center in some way, like maybe here, then black has the chance to play over here. And also black has a chance to just start breaking the center, for example, cutting here. In the real game, white played a weird shape here that doesn't really have a good follow-up to this black Atari. So white just gave up the one stone. And then played this slightly funny looking shape to connect to the center. Now you can see that one of white's stones is kind of unnecessary. So this is definitely a bad variation for white. This Atari is not really necessary. Black could choose to just attack the whole thing with maybe a move like this. Even if white plays here, white wouldn't have two eyes. So we might be able to expect white responding maybe with a move like this. After this, I might expect black to cover over here and start building up the potential on the top while also threatening the upper left corner. White's center still has a lot of holes, so black doesn't have to worry just yet. There's a cut here, there's a gap around here, and it's also open from this side and also over here. Locally, this Atari is Sente though, and it also helps the life and death for black. The reason for that is that, let's say white just ignores, then if black wedges here, if white double Ataris, black can respond by taking this stone, and if white connects, then black also connects and white is captured. If white takes, then black can Atari, and again, white is captured and black is all connected. If instead of playing double Atari, white plays the Atari from the top, black can just connect and these two cutting points are miai. So if white plays here, then black cuts and it's all captured. And conversely, if white connects in the center, then black cuts here. So defending the top was a bit unreasonable in this case because the group on the left for white is in quite a bit of trouble actually. Especially since the bottom is not very solid, so black can easily do a leaning attack. So black prepares for the fight with this exchange, make sure white's going to respond to this. If white plays some kind of counter like this, then we would want to have a different plan for our attack. And we can take some points by cutting in like this. Now black starts the attack. White moves out and black attaches. Something to notice here is the relationship between the stone here and the stone here. There's only one line separating them. As long as you can keep that one line difference, it makes it really hard for white to escape. On the other hand, if black just plays out here like this with another knight's move, white has a chance to come through, and now that relationship is broken. So it's going to be a lot easier for white to connect. Although black can still play a leaning attack with a move like this, and white's actually still in quite a bit of trouble here. But it's just a lot easier for black if you push white into the wall in the south. This one here. The other idea behind this move is that if white plays Hane, black can actually consider to play this Tiger's Mouth. Obviously, if white Ataris here, black can just give up the one stone and capture the little dragon on the left. So black would have too many points at this point, and then black can just focus on erasing white's center for the rest of the game. The other idea behind this is that if white just extends, then black may be able to cut here. Especially since this move here is usually going to be sente for black. So this ladder wouldn't work for white actually. In the real game, white just extended down. And now there's actually a vital point. If black plays here, then if white wants to connect, white has to make an empty triangle. So white ends up with a really bad shape. And if white tries to resist that by extending, then black can just play Hane, and again, white ends up connecting with some kind of empty triangle. In the real game, I didn't want this variation to happen actually, because later on, white is going to have an Atari here. And even if black pushes here, white would be able to Hane over here. So in the real game, I didn't really mind if white took this away from me. I would just get really, really strong in the center. And white still wouldn't have an eye there yet. And if white responds to my push by just extending again, then this time it would be even better when I break the shape, because if white responds like this and makes the empty triangle again, this time we have a really bad looking stone for white at 1 here. It's in a really ugly position with an empty triangle shape. So this would be like a double empty triangle. So that's pretty much what I was after. That's the difference I wanted. At this point, black could be happy just extending here. And it's not a simple matter for white to connect perfectly. If white pushes out like this, black can just start leaning like that. In the real game, white played here, and I decided to make sure that white can't make an eye in sente. So for example, if I just respond on this side, now when white plays here, locally this is sente, and if I connect, then white is on the way to having an eye. Plus, I had to think about the possibilities of white playing a wedge here. In the real game, I decided to take this away from white right away. And white jumped instead of extending, so I wedged in order to leave white with 2 cutting points. And since white didn't defend either one of the cutting points, I just started cutting. White could choose to give up the 2 stones by Atarying here, but then black could also choose to not capture them. For example, Atarying here, and if white takes, this ko might be more danger than black needs, since white can start the ko with a double Atari here. But black could also just extend down like this, and if white connects, black can just cut everything off like this with no issues. In the real game, white played here, but this wasn't really a Tetsuji. This is what we would call a fake Suji. So black just Ataris, and there's nothing white can really do now. That's it for today, guys. Stay safe and keep sente in the new year.